Hi y'all, welcome back to Salty Tarot. It's been a hot minute since I've recorded a reading. I've had a lot of other stuff going on, and I'm feeling such a strong urge for a deep dive, but I just felt compelled to get a little, like I want something juicy. I'm really craving like a nice juicy reading, and I will record a pick a card as soon as I have the chance to, but that won't be for a few days yet. But in the meantime, I've chosen two pretty heavy-hitting decks here. I've got the Medicine Heart Oracle here. So we'll pull a card. We'll pull a card for you and a card for your person, and that'll be sort of like our energy check-in. And and so the topic of the reading, we're just gonna see what comes up. So we're gonna do a collective love reading, see what comes up through these Medicine Heart cards. They go for the jugular for sure. And then over here, we've got the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And I'm just going to adjust this microphone a little bit. Hopefully it's not in the shot. How do I do this? Hope you can hear me all right. And so the Dreams of Gaia Tarot is completely insane. And I say that it's a new deck for me. I say that with utmost reverence. Hi, Takea. As soon as I start talking, you want to come hang out? Hi. Oh yes, you're so cute. Hi, pretty boy. That's Takea getting in on the tarot energies. Yeah, okay, so we'll jump into this deck and then I'll feel it out from there and see what we want to do next. So let's get into it. So Spirit, could you please tune me into the collective energies? And let's pull a card for your energies. See what's going on with you and if that resonates. Oh yeah, and so the caveat with me using these very reverent, heavy hitting, I don't know why I keep wanting to say heavy hitting, I don't know why metaphors of violence come out when things are intense. These decks are not at all in the register of violence. They're much more loving and tuned in. So as my vocabulary ought to be as well. But in any event, we're going to dive deep, but hopefully briefly. And that sound is my dog chewing an antler in the background. And so we'll see what comes through for your energy and for your person's energy. And because these decks have a lot of information in the guidebooks, I will be pausing the video to have a look at the guidebooks before I come back. So if there are stops and starts, that's what it is. So for your energy, we've got Metta Bhavana. Can we please get a card for the person in your heart? A card for the energy of the person in your heart at this time. What's going on with the person in your heart? Something by which you can recognize your person and know that this is the reading for you. Spirit, could we please get a card for the energy of our collective's person? What is your person's energy? Yours flipped right out. This is interesting. I've set out little markers for myself so I can tell where the screen is. We're going to take this one. We have Sacred Piercing. Okay, I have studied. So we're going to read from the guidebook a little bit. I'm going to try and sum it up as well. Okay, so Metta Bhavana, so you're in the energy of friendship. And so I see that this is creating shadows. I'll try and be mindful of the shadows so you can see the cards properly. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then I'm going to sum up the rest. So in this card, we've got magnolias. We've got the black masked lovebird in its blue mutation, which is a small African parrot native to Tanzania and also found in Kenya. And the card is about friendship. I'll read it out. It actually made me tear up a little, and I'll say why in a moment. I don't think this is going to be a short reading, unfortunately. But, there's a time for short and there's a time for diving deep. So we're going in. I'm not going to go too deeply in. We're not going to do a whole bunch of oracle cards, but these ones, it's just something wants to come through today. So we're going to allow it. Okay, so Metta Bhavana. Genuine friendship is grounded in acceptance, interest, and care. It brings out the best in us, offers encouragement for growth, and acknowledges our limitations and challenges with compassion. Friendship is a relational capacity for regard, reassurance, and relief. Be such a friend to yourself. Be sweet to yourself. Drop the inner war with your body, your mind, or your life, and consider how you might befriend yourself unconditionally. There are many good things that want to make their way into your life. Generating the emotional safety of friendship within naturally opens your heart to attract and enjoy the divine warmth that desires entry into your world. So, Medabhavana refers to the cultivation and manifesting of unconditional spiritual warmth. This is an offering of tremendous sweetness to all beings and includes learning how to be a good friend to yourself. And so I found this description quite interesting because it is often said in spiritual circles that I put, cards are dropping out of this book that I used as placeholders. I didn't even look at the one for interesting. Maybe we'll bring that in, but for right now. So we talk in spiritual circles about how, in order to bring in, and part of the, the twin flame journey or the journey of being a divine counterpart, is that period of separation when you're meant to be focusing on yourself and giving to yourself, the attention, the love, the devotion that you are seeking from another person. And, that's obviously a very, whatever you think about the twin flame, divine counterpart, soulmate, lore, shall we call it. And I'm not saying that I don't believe in it, but I am saying that I think it's healthy to be skeptical about things. But regardless, I think there's a very strong power and potency in how that journey is framed insofar as, we all need to be focusing on loving ourselves first and falling in love with ourselves first. And so I have been recently thinking about friendship and how that is something that I, at a certain point, wanted to call in and was excited to be in proximity to. And in my life, I have found that a bit elusive. It's actually in my astrology. And I feel like, in my later years, I've done much better with cultivating it and inviting it in and, playing with it. But when I was younger, it was certainly a struggle. And so, this next section made me tear up a little bit, and because it's applying the same wisdom to friendship, to the register of friendship. So, in order to be, you can love yourself and you can value things about yourself that you wish another person in a romantic relationship would value, and you can cultivate, your own independence and passions and follow your soul growth and your soul journey in the context of, wanting to invite in romantic love. But I also, for me, that's neither here nor there, because I don't think I've ever prioritized romantic love. As I hear myself saying those words, I'm realizing that might be a bit of a fault in me. But anyway, but I have yearned for, wanted to cultivate friendship and felt like that was the elusive thing. And so to apply those same lessons to friendship for me is a revelation, and it's the power of this card. So you might be in an energy of craving friendship, or wanting, perhaps in this connection with your person, wanting their friendship, wanting to be good friends with them first and foremost. And that is, of course, the healthiest relationship, romantically. Like, if you don't have a solid foundation of friendship, I'm not sure how that's what makes it sustainable, right? And that's what makes it truly pleasurable, in my view. There might be differences of opinion about that. You still need passion and intimacy and all of the other things that make romance, but I think that foundation of friendship is pretty critical. And in any event, friendships are deeply important across our lives. And so yeah, I found it quite interesting how this card is calling attention to being a friend to yourself. So I'm just going to read out the section that made me tear up a little. Being a good friend to oneself means learning the difference between being accountable to your own integrity and denigrating or disapproving of yourself. So holding that wisdom of, having the humility to recognize your own limitations, or, to call yourself to account if you behave out of integrity in a relationship with another person or in your relationship with yourself. But knowing the difference, being able to find that discernment, and discernment is what this card is all about, between calling yourself to account and putting yourself down. So, staying out of denigrating yourself or disapproving of yourself or feeling like you're unworthy, while still being able to call yourself out on behavior that might have been out of integrity, and to set intentions for behaving better. I continue. The more we want to declare our virtue to the world, the more likely it is that we are feeling a need to prove something, to compensate for a sense of lack within. To become a friend to yourself is to learn to feel the fullness of friendship and of belonging to yourself. Know that you have your own back, and that your love is a precious gift, worthy and beautiful, whether it is being shared with others or with yourself. And then, so talking about the symbols in the card, the magnolia says, research suggests that the first flowers on Earth resembled magnolia blossoms. It's an ancient plant over 100 million years old, and therefore it holds the medicine of intelligent evolution that is based on co-creation, support, and nourishment through remaining true to one's original and essential self. It teaches the power of a sacred ecosystem. And then the blue mutation of the black masked lovebird, that is a mouthful. These birds do not do well in solitude. They need plenty of attention from their humans, or ideally a mate, otherwise they can become aggressive. Naturally curious, social, affectionate, noisy, and prone to clown-like antics. I think this bird might be might have to be part of my pantheon, specifically with that mention of clown-like antics. Parrots bring the spirit of play into life and demonstrate the joy of connection. These sweet creatures can become dispirited when denied attention and affection. If you have been in a phase of solitude for a time, the oracle indicates a playful and lighthearted reconnection with others, opening up for you naturally, and encourages you to trust in your ability to be authentic, true to yourself, and simultaneously connected to others with a sense of balance and wisdom. If you are coming across any mean-spiritedness in yourself or others, go into compassion. Wisdom will protect you from accepting abusive or otherwise unacceptable behavior, while compassion will help you find a state of unconditional regard within your heart that will free you to be able to live and let live without bearing grudges or fear. Remember that all beings have a divine right to love, freedom, and peace. But it is up to each soul to take the journey and claim this for themselves, and then become able to share it with the world. We can only give what we have. Be gentle with yourself if you're experiencing pain from relationships of any kind. Compassion is a great healer. As your self-love flourishes, you can experience the world as a friendlier, more loving, and supportive place. If you find that you're in situations where other people are casting you in the role of enemy, you can claim your spiritual power to compassionately agree to disagree. Turn to the light within your heart as a place of sanctuary, kindness, unconditional support, and true friendliness with yourself. Sense the sacred friendship that exists within the divine heart and yours. Give yourself the gift of love. Give yourself the gift of love. Keep your heart hopeful, for love will always find a way. So yeah, you might be in an energy right now of reestablishing friendship with yourself. And the other thing I like about this description is it calls in authenticity, so as the foundation of friendship. And so you might be ruminating, sifting, sorting through your relationships right now, and maybe sorting out where you have been in integrity and where you have been in authenticity and where you perhaps have not, and you might be calling yourself back, calling back all the parts of yourself, calling your power back. You can say those words out loud right now, like, I call my power back. I call all the parts of myself back to me. Other phrases like that are not coming to mind right now. And just working on cultivating that authenticity within that allows you to be a friend to yourself, and sort of springboarding from there out into the world and bringing compassion to, where other people are not in integrity or other people's failings, recognizing, because you are a friend to yourself, that is their stuff, not yours. And, holding with your own authenticity and viewing them with compassion rather than, reactivity, like keeping out of that reactivity because you're grounded in your own connection to self. I really love that. I think that's such a beautiful message. So if that's your energy right now, then you're in the right place with respect to this tarot reading. And also, what a beautiful place to be in. I'm in awe of this card. And I think I'm resonating with it also because it's number 18 and my birth date is on the 18th of the month. And 1 + 8 is 9. So 9 might be a significant number for you in this connection right now. We've got 2 over here, put them together and you've got 11, and which reduces back to 2, of course. So moving on to your person. Double checking that we are recording. Oh yeah, this is not going to be short. 2. So this one was interesting because it speaks of, regardless of, without going off on a full rant, which, at some point when the words come, I'd like to deliver that rant articulately, but I'll just say, as I often kind of get in there with my tarot readings, that I think there's power in speaking of divine feminine and divine masculine, but I think that power is best harnessed with other words. And so I think I will more and more be trying to embrace, and it's hard because all the guidebooks refer back to divine feminine, divine masculine, and those are words that are so entrenched and familiar, and a lot of people have a deep investment in them as well. And I have a deep investment in disassociating them from the gender essentialism, essentially. So removing them from application to any particular body. So a lot of people handle that by still using those words and saying that they're talking about, the energy rather than gender. But for me, it's like you're kind of invested in that system of binary gender just by using terms like divine feminine and divine masculine. And I do use them on this channel, so like bracketing my own hypocrisy in that regard. They're a convenient shorthand, and sometimes I'm really feeling, like what those words pick out. But I think more effective language would be to refer to the divine active and the divine receptive being. Over here, we've got the divine active. And so I'm going to read this out in terms of divine masculine, but as per usual, as people who think critically about gender and sexuality tend to do, you can edit out divine masculine and hear divine active. And then that is how I will probably refer to it when I'm not reading the guidebook. It's too much for my brain to edit it as I read the guidebook, and it takes me out of the energy, so I'm just going to stick with their language while I'm reading. Okay. The Oracle of Sacred Piercing signifies the presence of divine masculine energy, providing you with the capacity. So this is your person. So your person's in an energy of developing skillful discernment and clarity, leading to constructive corrective action. There's something new coming through for them. So there's a different view, a new energy or attitude that needs to enter their awareness and their life. And that energy, well and familiar, holds within it the power, the potential to stimulate their healing journey and ultimately empower them in the manifestation of their life purpose. A time of increased activity, movement, and progress is imminent, and that will naturally arise in support of their authentic purpose in the world. So there's some information about piercing and, the sort of ritual and sacred uses of piercing that have been made in various cultures. And then it says the oracle of sacred piercing refers to the resilience and readiness of the soul to be opened up spiritually to the divine masculine, to express its uniqueness and assume its rightful role and divinely destined place in the world. And so it talks about the wounded masculine. And again, so you can think of this as the wounded active principle that can be applied to anybody. And the wounded masculine may be castrated in the sense of being afraid of its willpower, physical potency, drive, and strength, feeling that those are insufficient to overcome obstacles. Might be in the energy of frustration, anger, or uncontrolled violence. Or it may fear its own potency and power and fear that it will go into frustration, anger, and violence. It may opt out. The masculine consciousness within may opt out of investing in the soul's right and capacity to make a mark in the world in its own unique way and forgo its divine birthright to craft and leave a legacy that can heal its ancestral lineage and support future generations. It may overcompensate for perceived powerlessness through attempting to dominate others rather than master itself. And so the trick is to love oneself enough to simultaneously humble the ego and strengthen oneself spiritually through honoring the heart. And this part, I like how this is phrased, so I'm going to read it verbatim. He being the divine masculine, needs to allow the divine feminine purpose of loving liberation for all beings to become the higher guiding wisdom he honors and serves with his powerful energy. So, and then it says, when the divine feminine has a feeling, intuition, or knowing, it is the divine masculine that acts to respect, protect, and express that inner feminine truth in the world. So the idea is that the divine feminine, or the divine receptive principle, is where the intuition arises, where the knowledge or the value arises. And then the divine masculine, or the divine active principle, is where that is held, protected, and acted upon. Yeah, so basically it talks about how, wisdom requires follow through. And so I'm kind of pointing over here as if this is the divine feminine. And sure, we can go with that. This particular character does look like she's very much in her divine feminine. And so if the divine feminine is holding wisdom, the ability to convey that wisdom to the world would be the task of the divine masculine. So and this is where, receptive kind of falls down, because wisdom, having hits of intuition and having, the Shakti idea of, the feminine being all that is, and the masculine being the container with the Shiva principle, it sort of does not align quite with the idea of the feminine being receptive and the masculine being active. Because in fact, in that way of thinking of it, the feminine is the active and the masculine would be that like holding space, would be, more sort of the receptive container for the active principle. So it's interesting how they kind of get flipped, and that's where I default to divine feminine and divine masculine, and my logical brain wants everything to make sense, but there are different traditions in the world and they have different ways of speaking about things. And but in any event, within this description, we're talking about the feminine having the wisdom and the masculine being the principle of acting on that. So being receptive to the wisdom that's coming through, but then not just holding it, but creating wisdom effectually in the world is where your person may be at this time. So, and sort of undergoing that shift from the emasculated masculine, so feeling, powerless or being in those sort of negative energies of frustration, anger, domineering, dominating, the inclination to dominate. Yeah, and I really like how this card calls out that it's by self-love that the ego is humbled and action is cultivated. So, when you're in that ego state of feeling frustrated, feeling like nothing works, feeling like you can't move things forward, that is an ego state. It's a self-limiting belief, but it's also one that makes you and your role in the world more important than it actually is. So it's ego in the sense of, kind of being up there in your mind, but it's also ego in the sense of having an overinflated sense of self. And I really love the idea that it's by opening to the receptive wisdom and intuition that, the masculine, as it's worded in this book, you see how I'm like struggling with language here. It's hard. Relanguaging is hard. Is like the key is self-love, is having perspective, is recognizing one's own ability to act in the world and the importance of doing that, and that's not just about oneself, one's ego, that's not an act. Bringing through that wisdom, bringing through that intuition and clarity and that purpose of loving liberation for all beings, allowing that to become your higher guiding wisdom that you honor and serve with your power, with your energy, with your action, with your efficacy. That is a receptiveness to an inner calling that asks you to put aside your ego and step into that role of making things, bringing things down from, maybe the 5D into the 3D material realm, making them manifest at this level, at this plane, on this plane, and becoming that noble defender who listens and leads. It continues, there is a point when the soul becomes ready to stand up for its own light and willing to do what it takes to live its truth and uniqueness, no matter what anyone may have to say about it. This is a signal that the healing of the divine masculine consciousness is underway. And in that process, there will be breakthroughs around how to relate to one's inner truth, how to relate that truth to the world authentically, effectively, and with love. It contains the genius of divergent wisdom, which is not always a comfortable experience. It may be startling, refreshing, or even disruptive. It may be welcomed warmly or contemplated cautiously. This oracle suggests there is a benefit in allowing for a circuit breaker, a shift in the patterning of habit. Your person may be ready for change at a soul level. They've grown to meet it, and now it's time to pass the threshold that they've been preparing for. There's been long-standing preparation and readiness to create in a meaningful and significant way, and now is the time for them to assert their light without dominating another, leading whilst remaining in humble service to the universal divine heart. They are meant to reach for and attain that which their soul seeks. And so again, that notion that the healed divine masculine leads, asserts, takes action without dominating, without asserting power over. It asserts and has power and drive and motivation and moves things forward, but it doesn't do it for the sake of having power over another. And in fact, it is in service to another or to relationship or to that divine calling, what it is that they're meant to bring into the world. So yeah, I just find these guidebooks quite on point sometimes. Okay, so with that, if that's resonating, we're going to move on to the tarot and see what's going on in this connection and where it's going to go. And again, we're using the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So the cards in this deck are a bit, they're just wonky. And I don't have the patience to sit down and learn every card in a new deck that actually has 3 extra cards beyond the regular tarot, which as far as I've been able to gather are just variations on the Fool. Seems to have a, on the theme of our reading today, it's got a, like a kind of a masculine Fool, feminine Fool, and like a neutral Fool in addition to the regular Fool, I think, if I'm recalling correctly. In any event, even the cards that I expect that I would know and understand are a little bit different, and the words for the major arcana are quite different overall. But even the minor arcana are a little bit like, I mean, here, let's flip this over. We've got intuition on the bottom here, and that is card 22. And the regular major arcana only goes up to 21. So, yeah, and so is that the world? I would have to look at the guidebook to know. So I will be pausing the video as we go and learning the cards as we read. I'm just going to show off my mug for a second. Can't really turn it sideways to the full extent, but hopefully you can see that. It says, "I love you." And I got a pair of mugs for my ex-spouse because we were both into Star Wars, and one of them said, "I love you," and the other one said, "I know." And if you are into Star Wars and have paid attention to that, the central love relationship of those movies, you'll know what the reference is to. But my spouse was not impressed. And I left it to him which one he wanted to open. I was like, "They're for both of us. They're both for both of us." And he opened "I love you," and he's like, "This one's for me, right?" It was kind of funny. But he's a Pisces too, and, you know, far be it from a Pisces to take anything at face value. All right, so what is the spirit? Please tune me into our collective today, and what is the energy of this connection at this time? What is the current energy of the connection? We'll pull maybe a couple of cards or clarifiers if I find them confusing. What is the energy of this connection? This deck is so stiff. Oh my goodness. Oh, per my usual, I will take the top card of that, which, I mean, I can't even tell you what this is off the top of my head, but they're sure gorgeous, aren't they? Check that out. Hope you can see that. It's worth pausing the video just to have a look. Holy hell, that's gorgeous. These are glyphs, and as a good astrology student, I ought to know my glyphs. I want to say it's Earth, in which case it would be 9 of Earth, which would be 9 of Pentacles, which would be the energy of self-sufficiency, if this was a regular tarot. So we'll see. Yeah, in reverse. What is the energy, the current energy of this connection? Let's put that there. Let's get one more card for the current energy of this connection. If they make sense together, we'll leave it there, and I might pull. I reserve the right to pull more, if need be. But I will have to have a good look at the guidebook before we make that decision. I feel called to pull this one. Queen of Earth. And now see, that's definitely, I definitely have that one wrong. Maybe it's, oh, there is a sword in there, so perhaps it's the 9 of Swords. But how come this one says Earth and that one doesn't say swords, you know? Seriously. On the bottom we've got love, and it's in reverse. So, that's casting a shadow. And with this 9 of Swords, I officially love this deck. So, it's such an interesting deck. So what it does is pull through, basically the traditional 9 of Swords meaning is represented as the blockage, and then the upright meaning for this card is essentially the idea, and you know, I encourage a little bit of skepticism when I say things like this, but the idea that our beliefs create our reality. And so as I was reading over that card, I was thinking about current events and the state of things to the south of the border. And, you know, if my beliefs are creating my reality, why are they creating so much suffering in, you know, the Middle Eastern part of the world as well? I'm trying to avoid words that will cause this video to not be promoted by YouTube. But there's a lot of just intense, abject suffering right now. And if changing my beliefs could improve that, then, you know, then this is the most important card I've ever pulled for you, for me, for all of us. But so in any event, it talks about the idea that we are sort of like a fractal component of the God mind, and that we are patterning. It does talk about the actual material fact that anything that has been created, anything, like if you look around you and see the objects of daily life in the 21st century, 21st century? Yes, 21st century, of human life on Earth, what we call the 21st century, but it's obviously way, way beyond that. But in any event, the objects that we have around us, like, the phone that is recording this reading right now, and on, like even like the tumbled crystals that adorn the tarot table, the fabric, has all started as an idea. It's all originated in fantasy. And so when we have those ideas, when we have those fantasies, it does sometimes happen that people call us crazy or eccentric or foolish. And, everything, the guidebook says, everything we have in our present reality was once deemed to be an impossible fantasy. And yet now these things exist and we take their existence for granted. So that is certainly true of material things that are in existence. Coming out with, and then as a blockage, it does refer to the Nine of Swords, the traditional Nine of Swords, meaning of, self-limiting beliefs. I know I keep going back to that phrase as if it will make the same sense to you that it makes to me. Let me just read a little bit. So all too often we allow fears, sometimes imagined fears, to prevent us from leading a happy, productive, and fulfilling life. We limit our potential because we imagine we will be laughed at. We do not express our thoughts and feelings because we fear what others will do or think of us if we are honest. We imagine failure, and so we may simply not try. So basically it's a call to banish imagined fears. Use your imagination to serve you, to imagine away those fears. Imagine a different reality than the one that you're scared of. Imagine, it refers to you may reject a potential relationship because you imagine it not working. But just as you imagine your worst fears, you can also imagine success. When you find your imagination taking you down a negative pathway, you can choose to take control of your dreams instead. It is in your power to shift and change all that you imagine. When you see failure, change it to success. When you imagine an ending, instead see a beginning. When you fall, learn how to fly. It is your imagination. It is yours to control, to manipulate, and create. Imagine your fears away. And while it, may not be as simple as just imagining your fears away and poof, they're gone, it does highlight that in order to create something different than what you fear, you have to be able to envision what that looks like. You have to first have the imagination of success. And if you want to implement that success, you do need to take the steps. But you're not going to be able to take those steps if you don't know where you're going, if you haven't visioned what that success looks like. And so, because this is in reverse, it's in this deck, it's highlighting the blockage. I was going to say perhaps you're coming out of that state because my mind is still working with the traditional meaning of the Nine of Swords. So maybe you've been in a state of anxiety and you're coming out of it now. That might resonate for you. But it could also be that there's this very strong call to imagine what it would look like to be successful in this relationship. And maybe that's where the connection is at this time. maybe there's been this blockage, this sort of expectation of failure, and maybe the task now is for you, your person, both of you together, or each of you separately, to envision, or just you, because you're the one here, to imagine what success, fruition, fecundity would look like in this connection. And then with the Queen of Pentacles, she was a little bit earlier. Oops, I'm back to the swords. Here she is. There's an emphasis on hands, on creating with hands. So the Queen of Pentacles is, of course, the Queen of Earth is the Earth Mother, like a real authentic Earth Mother, larger than life, abundant, generous, grounded, realistic, but also sees magic everywhere. And I was thinking about that phrase, and there's nothing more magical than nature. If you sit in contemplation of nature for even just a moment, if you're in the middle of when I lived in the city, my favorite thing in the city was the weeds growing up through the cracks in the sidewalk. To me, that was emblematic of the resilience of nature. And, the fact that plants working under the earth that nobody expected to be there, no human expected to be there, can, wiggle their way up through concrete, which, to my mind, as a young person, concrete was like the epitome of strength, the epitome of like human assertion in the world. Concrete is actually terrible for the earth. We spread it everywhere, and it's actually quite bad for the soil, and, leaches all kinds of toxins into the earth. And then you have these like, bold little weeds growing up through the cracks. Like they make the cracks, the plants make the cracks. If you have walked on a sidewalk where trees were planted long ago, often the concrete will kind of burble up. You don't see that as much anymore. I think humans have figured out how to engineer that away. But it used to be that, you'd often be walking over these roots, these tree roots that had just like pushed the concrete up into a little bubble. And, the root would be protruding through. And I used to think about, like if humans poof disappeared from the earth, it would probably take maybe 50 years, and there'd be no sign of us having ever existed, except for like, nuclear waste dumps going crazy in various locations. I mean, there'd be some signs, but there'd be a lot of the earth would just kind of cover over, like particularly in the area where I live in the rainforest, like it does not take long for, like if you want to go out and find like even an antler that's been shed a few months before, you got to be on it, because the moss and the grass and the weeds and the earth will just cover it over. And, everything just gets covered over, and nature just is resilient and absorbs and, breaks down and takes away those toxins and carries them somewhere else where maybe they could be useful again. And so it says she loves nothing more than using her hands to touch, connect, and create. She has a tactile and sensual nature. She will nurture your every endeavor while also offering wise and honest counsel. She'll ask how you see yourself. She'll call you back to the garden, to the home-cooked meal, away from your spreadsheets, back into the things that root us, that ground us. And she may bring a gentle reminder to be both nurturing and supportive of those around you, and supporting them without trying to change them. Maybe you need a motherly role model at this time. So what I'm saying is that there's it might even just be that there's an energy of imagining domesticity. That could be one interpretation. Imagining what success at domesticity would look like for you and your person. Imagine what it would look like to nest together, to build together, to have a home together, to have a garden together, to plant those dreams into the soil and watch them grow. Procreation, if that's your vibe. Creative projects, if that's your vibe. And what would it look like to imagine, seed, nurture, grow, and harvest together with your person in whatever area of life that is coming through for you? And then with the Love in reverse, so this is, one of those confusing major arcana extra cards. Extra, or I'm not sure. I tried to sort of make them make sense with the standard major arcana, and that's when I gave up on learning this. I went through and I very dutifully learned all the major arcana, and then just decided my brain was not having it. So that's when I decided this deck is sui generis, and I just have to treat it as such, meaning I may see connections to the traditional tarot, but I may not. So I'm not sure what card this is meant to refer to. It's coming through as the number 12, but the numbers keep going past the traditional. So 12 would be the Hanged Man traditionally, but is it? Because there's 3 Fool cards, so maybe it's actually Temperance, or it could be the Devil, but definitely it's not having a devil energy. In any event, this is my tarot nerdism that I'm sure is oh so fascinating. For if you're into tarot, then it might be interesting for you, but otherwise you probably just want to know what's going on in your connection. So let's get back to that. So it could refer to for the blockage, one of the most difficult things to do is to remove a person from your heart, to let go of love when it no longer serves us. It's necessary to release the dreams and fantasies about what was and accept the reality of what is. If you're holding on, you may be closing yourself to new relationships. It may be time to say goodbye. So if that's resonating for you, then that might be the meaning that this is picking out. And, perhaps what is being released is that vision with the person that you've come to this reading asking about today. And maybe you're being asked to imagine what fecundity will look like if you release that connection. So if that's resonating, then that's your message. But if you're feeling, all kinds of no, that's not what I came here to hear, then the other interpretation is that it may be time to say goodbye to the negative speak that goes on in your mind. Say goodbye to that voice, tell it to hush, tell it that you are breaking up with it and that you are no longer listening. It might be a petty voice that is merely preventing you from doing what you know will make you happy. And so the other interpretation would be that, if you are invested in the growth of this connection, then again, I see this message echoing that it's time to let go of those self-limiting beliefs, anything that's holding you back, and envision what it would look like to be all in with your person. If you felt any kind of as I said those words, then work with that. That's a powerful, potent message from your psyche that there's something there. How is your person seeing you at this time? Spirit, can we please get a clarifier for the 8 of Pentacles in reverse? Clarifier for the 8 of Pentacles in reverse. I'm being called to take this one, actually. Get one more, please, Spirit. One more card, please. How is your person seeing, what energy is your person seeing you in at this time? How is your person seeing you at this time? Ooh. Okay, well, we got 2 there. Oops. Oh no, we got 3. Spirit, that's too many. Okay, so these cards are actually going together quite well now that I've delved into them. So the 8 of Pentacles in reverse or the 8 of Earth in reverse is talking, a potential blockage is that, so your person may be seeing you as being in kind of a cynical energy, or potentially the words here are blind to the wealth and abundance you already have in your life, in a failure, having negative thoughts that cause you to fail to appreciate the wealth in your life, or being too focused on material rewards, so too focused on money or financial wealth. But it's mainly about having a lack mentality. And the healing in reverse talks about, kind of lines up with that. And it's interesting because I noticed healing earlier because it's the card before love. So we've got the healing in reverse, and then love in reverse was our bottom of the deck energies for the overall energy of the connection. And so healing in reverse talks about, sort of contrary to what we were talking about earlier, it talks about being over-reliant on the idea that your mind is creating your reality. And the phrase in the guidebook here is, positivity and prayer can work miracles, but not when they are being used as wound dressing over an untreated or infected wound. And it talks a lot about not reaching out for help. So it's saying reach out and ask for help, about resistance to getting help with healing for reasons of fear. And so there might be like a kind of, your person might be seeing you as being in a sort of a lack energy where you're scared to ask for help, or you're scared to bring in healing because, like, I'm getting a sort of self-limiting belief kind of thing. But there might also be, if you're going through any kind of physical ailments, it might be that your person is feeling a little bit like you're holding yourself back from accessing what would allow that ailment or those ailments to heal. I say that knowing that there's a collective out there, and that there could be any number of things going on with your body or your psyche or your emotional body. And so please take that very much with a grain of salt. Take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But so just with respect, staying in the register of healing overall, so it seems as if your person is seeing you as being almost independently committed to doing things yourself, and because of that, sort of keep holding yourself back by not allowing in the help that could allow you to feel, foster, be aware of abundance. So it seems like maybe they are wanting to help and feeling kind of prevented from it. And then, but conversely, they're also seeing you as this incredible potential over on the other side. So this is the Ace of Swords, the Ace of Air, and all of the aces in this deck are dragons, and I think the art is so effing cool. So this meaning is pretty close to the Ace of Swords traditionally. So new ideas, personal truths, paradigms, originality, individualization, motivation, choices, and belief. So again, coming back to that idea of allowing your ideas to free themselves in order to invite in a better reality than the one that you're in, letting go of outdated beliefs and ideas that no longer serve, replacing false assumptions or inaccuracies with ideas born of self-awareness, fact, and genuine knowledge, learning to distinguish between those two, honoring personal truths that have foundation in your own experiences instead of embracing the truths of others. So sort of taking off those truths of others like an ill-fitting pair of shoes that you've borrowed from another person, and then realizing that you need your own shoes. You need, a set of beliefs that are your own, that are coming from your own experiences, and that essentially your physical reality will follow from that sort of tune-up of your beliefs. There's an opportunity to embrace new paradigms and patterns and to replace those that limit and restrict you, cut away what clouds judgment and perception, and invite in clarity. And you may also be feeling motivated and excited by the ideas in your head, your goals and dreams, and by that process of individualization. So your person might see you as being in this sort of energy of, and then over here as well with the crone, there's an energy of fierceness, like sort of a fierce individualization, while also still being in the caretaking energies of the mother. Let's jump over there. My cards fell out for these ones. So the crone is very much about, let's start with the mother. So the mother is unconditional love, compassion, abundance. So she's sort of the Empress energies, except that one issue I'm having with this deck is that if this is meant to be the mother is described as the very essence of non-sexual intimacy, patience, compassion, unconditional love, and forgiveness. And the Empress is, of course, she's got that Queen of Wands, like sexy juiciness to her as well. And I really have a problem with the mother being described in this as this non-sexual creature, because of course mothers become mothers through sexual intimacy, and they are, they might be in a phase of wanting to take a little break from that while they're sort of saturated with physical touch from, new babies. But ultimately, the mother is a very sexy figure, and I think it doesn't serve our society to strip the sexuality away from motherhood. Of course, no one wants to think of their own mother in a sexual way necessarily, but I imagine it comes from that. But, I think we all acknowledge that our parents are sexual beings, and that's how most of us came to exist, almost all of us. The mother is also symbolic of a fertile and abundant mind, a mind where ideas take root, and helps to nurture and to grow and blossom ideas, and gives without hesitation or reservation, embodies unconditional love. Conversely, the crone is described here as the woman who, now being past childbearing years, is no longer defining her worth through her children. It also bothers me that this mother doesn't have a baby or a child in close proximity, because what makes a mother? A child. Or at least a passion project of some kind that, shout out to all the rave moms out there. And so the crone is a force to be reckoned with. She embraces her true power and potential. She's no longer allowing society to define her. She's wild, still, passionate, volatile, calm, peaceful, adaptable, flowing, creative, and powerful. She's everything she chooses to be. So that was an analogy to nature. She's like nature in all of those contradictory qualities. She's unafraid of being alone or walking her path alone. Strong and independent, she's found new purpose. She lives a life of her own design. She's comfortable in her own skin, free of artifice and pretense. Mature, honest, aware, wise, understanding and compassionate, but blunt and direct, and unafraid to deliver a tough love message. And it notes that this is why our society tends to vilify people who are in their crone energy, because she is truly a force to be reckoned with. And if she's in those energies, then, nobody can deny the power of the crone. So she's sort of portrayed as, wrinkled, ugly, past her prime, because if she feels useless, then she can be controlled. And the crone is, in essence, that feminine energy that is wild and cannot be tamed, has already been tamed and come through the other side of that. So I think your person is seeing you as fierce, independent, and perhaps in need of inviting in some assistance, maybe from them, maybe they want to feel useful or needed. I'm not sure. If that resonates, take that. I don't think it's in a critical energy so much as it seems like an energy of, like, I'm getting a sense of admiration for these qualities and a sense of, concern. Like, I want to say that I want it to be genuine concern, but I am getting a bit of a false note of, like, there being a little bit of maybe ego perception. So I'm not saying this is the energy that you are in. This is what your person is seeing you as at this time. So take that if it resonates. Let's see. Let's give it a little shuffle and see what energies you're seeing your person is being in. I'm going to try to keep this to 1 or 2 cards. Anyway, so we're looking at the energies that you are seeing your person in. Let's get 1 more card. So this would traditionally be the 7 of Swords, and the meaning here is not about sneakiness at all. It's about religious dogma and spiritual sort of clinging to belief, and the possibility that spiritual beliefs can create great goodness in the world, but it can also cause suffering and wars and that kind of thing, and just the dangers of dogma. This guy gives me serious Darth Vader vibes, I gotta say. I can see that he's meant to be like some kind of Hierophant priest. He's got angel wings. He's holding what would you call that? like a rosary with feathers. He's got a third eye, he's got stars in his cloak. He's obviously like of the universe. He's the teacher, or the religious, I was going to say iconoclast. I don't know if that word means what I want it to mean. He's like a religious authority figure, definitely not an iconoclast. So beliefs can serve to make you a better person, or they can serve to make you more critical and rigid. So you might be seeing your person as being in a kind of on that line. So maybe they're very attached to their philosophy of life or their system of judgment, and perhaps doing so at the expense of a healthy sense of well-being. It might be leading to sort of extreme fundamentalist behavior that could be within, religious, in a religious sense, or it could just mean that they're applying a very rigid philosophy to the connection between you. So they might have, some core beliefs that they're not deviating from, and kind of interpreting what's happening between you or out in the world in general through a very rigid belief system that, might be intended to create, like a healthier, happier, kinder, more compassionate life, but is serving to perhaps have the opposite effect. And then in combination with the emotions in reverse, so as a blockage, the emotions card can refer to essentially emotional repression. So, and that's what the Suit of Swords is kind of all about to start with. So you might really be finding that your person is like intellectualizing instead of feeling their emotions or being in their emotions. It talks about how emotional outbursts and emotional honesty can be frowned upon, seen as weaknesses. Emotional outbursts can be seen as losing control, and in a negative way. Sometimes it's good to lose control, and in so doing, we in repressing emotions, we choose to disconnect. So you might be seeing your person as disconnecting from their selfhood, from their emotions, from what is really going on with them. And it makes the point that feelings don't go away just because we want them to go away or just because we ignore them. So they will find ways to express, including, got a whole long list here: overeating, drug and alcohol addiction, pretending or denying that an experience occurred, any type of compulsive behavior, compulsive exercising, eating disorders, cutting, hiding in the fictional realities of computer games or books or television shows, working to excess, avoiding deep and meaningful conversations, and hiding behind a mask of peace, love, and light. So these all might be ways of kind of, in a toxic way, avoiding emotions and being in denial, intellectualizing or scorning emotions. Overreacting can be another one, and physical signs of tension, especially in the mouth, jaw, stomach, throat, shoulders. So it might be that you're feeling like your person is facing a call to be emotionally honest and to choose the healthy path of acknowledging, accepting, and allowing their feelings to flow, quoting the guidebook. So let's move on to what your person is feeling about you at this time. So let's give these a shuffle. I think it's a little ironic too that you're seeing your person is not feeling. And that, like, if you remember earlier, I was like, actually, we're not going to look at what they're feeling right now. We're going to look at how they're viewing the connection first. And then I can't remember exactly what I said, but for some reason I thought that we would pause on the feeling part of it. And so here it is, divine timing. So how is your person feeling about you at this time? What are their feelings towards you? We got 3 cards coming out. I'll just take them, but I think we're going to stop it there. Bottom of the deck, we've got self. I'll pull that one out too. Okay, so this is interesting because it really echoes the energy that your person is seeing you in. And the question this time was, what are they feeling for you? And it's coming through as not so much feeling, but thinking. There's a lot of thinking here. So your person might be, and you are seeing them as being in an energy of sort of having shut down their emotions. And I think I can confidently say that at this point because it's coming through again here. So your person might not be feeling anything towards you so much as thinking towards you, about you. And what they're thinking is kind of similar to what we've already talked about, namely that, oh, and I did want to just highlight that this is one of the very same cards that came through last time, which is the Ace of Swords, or the Ace of Air in this deck. And the other ones here are, this is the Knight of Pentacles, and the what's that, 11 card, body, mind. 11 of air is the Page of Pentacles, or sorry, Page of Swords. I'm getting there. Thanks for your patience. So we've got the Page and the Knight. No, we've got the Page and the Ace of Swords, and then we've got the Knight of Pentacles. And so traditionally, the Knight of Pentacles is very methodical, very systematic, sort of crafting a plan and then executing the steps to get there. This particular, it's this, I don't know how to pronounce this, but the seneschal, basically it's describing, I should have looked up that word while we were paused there, but I did not. You can Google that, I suppose. Maybe I will the next time I take a little break here. But in any event, it's the servant to the ruler. And so in my mind, I'm thinking of it as the servant to the king. And so it's sort of like that trusted person, like the second in command, the person who executes all of the king's commands and laws. You know, it's both, in the description it says they're both the like they mete out justice and they are the mediator, and they're the one who's tasked with ensuring the enforcement of the laws, making sure that everything in the kingdom, I want to say, I don't think the description used that word, but is following the rules. So they're tasked with ensuring everything follows the rules and with putting themselves aside. So their personhood is sort of set aside in order to follow the rules. And so it might be that your person, I'm kind of reading that as your person is in that energy. And what they're feeling towards you is that there's a need to, maybe there's a need to do things right. Maybe they feel like they need to, maybe we are getting to a feeling here and I was just too quick to judge, which is of course the lesson of the suit of air. And this one, like there's a lot of judgment energy coming through and coming from your person. Not necessarily that they are judging, but just that they are cognizant of the energy of judgment. Maybe they fear your judgment. Maybe they see you as I mean, there's again that reiteration of, you know, the fierceness and the individuation. And let's just jump to that again. So reading this as how they're feeling towards you, so it was the card of sticking to facts, letting go of outdated beliefs and ideas. So I'm sort of seeing it as them letting go perhaps of outdated beliefs about you. So they may have held to kind of an ideology of you. They may have formed a philosophy, as we were saying before, about you, and sort of, you know, we're interpreting experiences to kind of fit into that judgment call they'd made about you. And now they're sort of in this energy of wanting to embrace new ideas, new truths, sort of letting go of what isn't, the outdated beliefs that are not serving. And I'm reminded also that part of the meaning of this card was feeling motivated and excited by the ideas in one's head, goals and dreams. And that's part of the individualization process. So it might be that they're, I wonder if there's been any energy of your person being influenced by others in this connection and how they think of you or view you. It might be that they're detaching from the views of those others and coming to their own, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Coming to their own, maybe there's communication stuff going on in this connection, throat chakra blockages. And, you know, this card can be communication as well in the traditional meaning. But maybe they're excited to be forming their own impression of you or their own judgment of you, and to be sort of rooting that in their experiences rather than taking on the opinions of others and substituting them for their own. And then, so this guy is here in reverse, and he's got some cool ass bat wings. Like, these cards are so intricate and interesting. Maybe they're meant to be dragon wings, I don't know. But hopefully you can see that. So, and then this card in reverse means essentially the description of the blockage was one sentence, and it said it means the same as when it's upright. And so it is the Page of Swords, the Page of Air, being the 11 of air. And it's all about the relationship between the body and the mind and how they influence each other. And so it talks about, if the body is out of sync, it can influence the mind insofar as, if you've got some kind of systemic imbalance, that can make your thinking cloudy, that kind of thing. If you're having issues with, like any kind of health issues, they can really affect how able you are to be present in the moment at the very least, and they can completely change how you're thinking as well and feeling about life. Needless to say, I'm sure we've all experienced at least a little bit of that, we all get sick. And if there's more systemic or more serious things going on, then that can really throw you off kilter. I'm just thinking back to the healing card earlier. And sorry for the throat clearings. And it also talks about the same concept of the mind influencing our perception of reality and sort of conditioning the physical. It talks about basically trying to find the middle path between being a skeptic and being so trusting that you just believe in the good of others without question. And it points out that if you are too attached to facts, you can close yourself off to reaching your fullest potential. You may limit yourself in what you can accomplish because achieving goals and living your dreams requires a belief in something more than just the tangible. And and so it talks about walking that middle path, using skepticism and discernment to avoid making foolish mistakes, but also being open to what is beyond the physical. And so it might be that your person maybe they've been very rule-bound and sort of following a dogma. Maybe that dogma has come from the influence of some other people. That's not directly here in the cards, but it's coming through for some reason, so that might resonate for somebody accessing this reading. And so if that is the case, then it may be that they're detaching from that pre-organized, I don't know, I want to say like cognitive system through which they were viewing you, and they're becoming a little more discerning. It might be that I don't know, this is coming through and I feel like I should just say it, but I'm sort of questioning myself so maybe they had a view of you that was conditioned by other people that involve, following this set path, and which led them to a particular view of you in which they were perhaps excessively skeptical and closed off to you. And now they're individuating, basing their, reevaluating that system of thought and coming to view you through their own lens. And in doing so, they're learning to, if somebody's been hurt in the past, it's possible that they've shut down their heart and that they're viewing new situations, for example, you, perhaps, in this situation, if that is your situation, through, a cognitive structure that was created in response to a previous trauma. And so that might even be it. That might be the influence of other people. So perhaps there's been a previous situation that has led them to really want to sort of follow the rules and take things slowly, come up with a plan, execute the plan one step at a time, and just make sure that everything's being done right. And it's possible that they're breaking out of that a little bit and starting to be open to the actual present moment of you. And in so doing, they're finding that middle path between skepticism, which maybe was a little too dominant, and I'm saying that based on the previous cards as well, and that other path that, maybe they've been fully closed off to, of being trusting. And so now they're sort of allowing in that trusting and coming to view you in this new light. And then in the back of the deck, we've got the Self. That actually ended up being quite juicy, didn't it? 14. Past love, past healing, we have the Self. And the Self, yes, okay, so the Self is where I was maybe getting some of that stuff about individuation, although it is here in this card. The Self card signifies the importance of establishing a unique and individual identity, free of definitions and labels, embracing unlimited potential. There are elements in society that try to quash the independent, the creative, the authentic. We risk condemnation. We risk being called eccentric or crazy as creative types in the world. And it takes courage to defy family tradition, societal expectations, the idea of normal, and to establish a healthy, authentic self-identity. So stepping free of the labels others have bestowed upon us and redefining ourselves and having the courage to follow your own path requires a journey of undoing, being, becoming, and finding your center place. And so that might be what is happening for your person in the background, or they might see you going through that journey and you sort of taking steps to individuate yourself and be authentic to your own journey and sort of coming out of maybe molds that have been placed upon you or that you have placed upon yourself that are coming from the expectations of family, tradition, society, whatever influences there have been on you or your person. So I can see that running both ways, that maybe they're coming through that process and that is changing their perception of you for the better. Or it may be that they're seeing you as starting to, sort of cast off the mantle of expectations and becoming, like, getting into that fierceness that we were talking about before. Whew. So we're going to now look at where the connection is heading. I don't know if y'all can see the changes in the light. Definitely the changes in my voice as the reading's gone on. But it's taken several hours to film this, and I'm sort of doing it in between my work, and the light, last I checked, wasn't working, and I think we might just stick with the daylight now, as I think it's sufficient. I'll find out in the editing. Just double checking we're still filming. I get nervous about it now after all the snafus recently. So far, so good. Okay, we are asking, Spirit, please let us know where this connection is heading. So what is the likely outcome given all of the present factors? Where is this connection heading? I'll get a few cards. I've not seen that guy before. Where is this connection heading between you and your person, the person in your heart? Where is this connection heading? Bottom of the deck, we've got desire. Where can I put that? Can you see it there? Maybe over here. There. That's casting a shadow, though. Here, you come down and you go here. How's that? Okay, so there's a mild amount of ambiguity here just with this gal turned upside down. But otherwise, it's looking quite positive and like there's a direction of forward growth. So I'm going to go through each of the cards, and I'm loving the order of things, ending with desire. Desire, of course, is my favorite thing out of the entire world. I almost I was accepted into a PhD program to write on desire, actually, in the philosophy of Spinoza. Well, actually in the Arabic antecedents to Spinoza, but I digress. Okay, so I just distracted myself so much with that exciting little mention of Spinoza being one of the first early modern philosophers. And yeah, okay, not the time for a Spinoza philosophy lecture, but I'd love to. If anyone is actually interested in early modern philosophy or any philosophy at all, feel free to, especially that era, feel free to put that in the comments, and I will for sure ramble about it in later tarot readings. Just give me an excuse, give me a reason. So, this is mainly positive. There's a bit of a backslide here, but that might be productive. It's mainly moving towards a productive outcome that is, there's a lot about worth here and the value and self-worth, and this might be a bit of a backslide but maybe providing an out for those who want an out or are seeking an out. But overall, I'd say there's indications of forward movement into a deeper connection, and I love the progression here, and I love that we end with desire. And so desire is, of course, my favorite thing out of all the things. Okay, so this is the Four of Pentacles, which in the traditional tarot is about attachment and sort of hanging on tightly to resources. It can be about wanting to create stability, and that's the meaning that is coming through with this card. So this guy there's like a lot of blood. I don't know if you can see that blood, but he's got like a crack in his arm here that's bleeding. There's like blood dripping down his armpit and landing on the sill here, and there's a bit of blood up here too. So it looks like he's bleeding for his stability. But the meaning of the card is quite positive. So slow and steady progress, one step at a time. It's giving me sort of a traditional Knight of Pentacles vibe. Fear and doubt, slow forward momentum. Do not falter. That will become important as we go on here. Rest and recharge. A good outcome ahead. Do not make hasty decisions. Watch for careless errors. When the Four of Earth appears in your reading, a happy and rewarding outcome is close at hand. The key to completing large or long-term projects is in making slow and steady progress. Put one brick on top of the other. Persevere. Continue to build, even when you feel you want to give up. So I'm guessing he is being stoic and not giving up despite bleeding for his goals. You have made real and tangible progress. Do not falter now. You are close to achieving your goal or manifesting the outcome you desire most. Take a moment to look back how far you've come and celebrate, and then continue forward with the same level of dedication. So that tells me that if you've been building to something with the person in your heart, maybe you're trying to manifest them. Maybe together you are trying to manifest a long-term relationship or a long-term, I want to say mutual investment. I'm picturing a home. Maybe you're building a home. Maybe you're quite literally putting those bricks into place. Maybe you are creating the energetic humus in which to grow a fruitful relationship, a fruitful and bountiful relationship together. And I really am getting an energy of two-ness through this reading, as in you're both in it. And there's something, whether it's in the 3D or not, and it might be in the 3D, it might not be apparent to both of you at this time, or it might be, you might be fully in it together and you might be building towards, like this is often, I feel like I'm channeling sort of relationships and separation. This could be that, but I am also very strongly getting an energy of togetherness, mutual investment, like mutual working towards some kind of goal of depth and stability. And then we've got this card over here, which is, so there hasn't been, I was noticing as I was shuffling out these cards, that there has been a dearth of cups and wands in this reading. Cups are emotions, wands are desire and passion. And of course they're both my favorite suit, both cups and wands. I mean, they're all important, not to denigrate the air and the earth, but I am all fire and water in my astrology, and I am definitely partial to those two modes of being. The depths of the emotions and the fiery passion. You put them together and you get steam. And there's no better place for me than a steam room. Anyway, moving back to you. Okay, so the Six of Water, Six of Cups, traditionally is about togetherness, nostalgia, and in reverse it can refer to being sort of too much in the nostalgia, like hanging on to the past a little too tightly. Here, the upright meanings are sort of almost Queen of Cups-ish, actually. I was going to say Page of Cups, but it's almost beyond that. It's kindness, concern, sympathy, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, love, ideals. So sort of, being as good as a human can be, but doing it with boundaries. But the blockage in the reverse says it has a very simple message and meaning. It does not serve us well to give in to the desire to inflict hurt just because we believe someone to be deserving of it. We may feel justified, but what purpose does an act of spiteful retaliation serve but to make us less and perpetuate suffering? It can also be said that it makes us energetically the same as the person who harmed us. It comes to caution against embracing pettiness and retaliation, regardless of circumstances. And rather than meting out revenge, it encourages us to remain peaceful and emotionally detached. We can choose to be kind to ourselves and end our suffering by walking away and by investing our time and emotion in something more worthy. So there might be, if you are someone who has felt like you were wronged in some way by your person, and if you're having those reactions of wanting to, if you're wanting to like have justice for that, I mean, the desire to have justice is one thing. That can just be a desire for justice or for an apology from another person, or, for some kind of recognition of the harm and suffering you've endured, and just feeling heard even. But if it goes beyond that into you have a desire to retaliate, you have a desire, you've got some kind of spite to your motivations that's, making you want to hurt that person in the way that you've been hurt, or to hurt future people in the way that you've been hurt in the past. And, realistically, that is often the way it plays out, unfortunately. And because we have a trauma response and then we build up our walls and then we inflict that same trauma on, the next person that we had inflicted on us. So, hurt people. If we don't do the work, if we don't do the healing. So if there's any kind of like feelings of desire for the other person to suffer, like that's not love, right? If you're having a desire for another person to suffer, that to me points to a lack of self-love first and foremost, and it is definitely not, being in the energies of loving another person. So curb that, and let's move on over to the 4. So we're going from the 6 to the 4. And what I'm really noticing is that they're like the inverse of each other. Like they, this is looking very, very similar here. And the colors, it's the colors of the suit of water. But I feel like these two cards are sort of playing together. And then these two seem, we've got the figures similarly framed in the cards in an interesting way. And then we're breaking the mold over here. And we've got baby dragons here and a big mama dragon over here. Okay, so 4 of water, which would be the 4 of cups. And in the traditional tarot, that's about looking, like sort of not appreciating what is around you. But in this deck, it has a totally different meaning. I can't even connect it back, except that I think there is a sense in the 4 of cups in which the person in the card is sort of self-focused. So it might be that this card is picking something out about that, but it doesn't emphasize that at all. It emphasizes the self-focus. So keywords: confidence, awareness, self-acceptance, forgiving, self-belief, deserving, receptive consequences. You are beautiful. Be aware of weaknesses, but focus on strengths. Regard mistakes as an opportunity to learn. And so here, and for the rest of the cards, there's a very strong emphasis on letting go of the ideal of perfection, on recognizing that the search for perfection creates imperfection. Love yourself for who you are. The 4 of water stands before you with quiet confidence and awareness. Despite his scarred appearance, and he's got some scars going through here and an eye that appears to be missing. And in tarot, that can mean that they're looking, the character is looking inside, that they're able to see things beyond the material realm. Despite his scarred appearance, he sees only beauty when he looks at his reflection. A gentle smile curves his lips, and he regards himself with kindness and understanding. He has many weaknesses, and during his lifetime has made many mistakes, and yet he chooses to see the lessons he has learned and forgive himself. Instead of holding on to feelings of shame, regret, and guilt, every scar makes him more beautiful, and every mistake presents him the opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become wiser. Oh, I'm tearing up again. Must be all the cups coming through. That's a beautiful way to regard oneself, and I think we all could stand to infuse a little bit more of that self-love, and I think that's the point of this card. He refuses to allow hurt or disappointment to erode his self-belief or close his heart. This does not mean that he is blind to his flaws, rather he accepts them for what they are, parts of a whole that is imperfect and perfect at the same time. So this card is asking you whether you look at yourself with less love than you should. You would shine like the sun if you would accept your flaws and forgive your imperfections and aspects of your nature your flaws. You'd shine like the sun if you would accept them and forgive them and allow them to simply be part of who you are. It is time to let go of the idea that to be perfect is to be without flaw. Stop looking for the perfect relationship, the perfect idea or creation, the perfect career, or the perfect opportunity. Every relationship, idea, creation, career path, opportunity has flaws, imperfections, and the potential to fail or go awry. Realize that perfection is a paradoxical state that exists only when there is a peaceful acceptance and unconditional love for those scars, weaknesses, and flaws. I'm going to read that again because that's really important. Realize that perfection is a paradoxical state that exists only when there is peaceful acceptance and unconditional love for those scars, weaknesses, and flaws. So perfection, paradoxically, is only achieved when you accept imperfection. Knowing that imperfections and flaws are an undeniable, necessary part of the beautiful, magical whole. And this card asks you to release any feelings of inadequacy or discomfort and to love yourself without condition. And so I'm reading that as it's not referring to you or your person specifically, but to the connection. So the outcome is that you're moving into stability, releasing resentments, releasing any, desire for like a tit for tat kind of mentality. And you're moving into this state where instead of wanting to have retribution for past wrongs, you're accepting them as part of the flawed whole of the relationship. And you're moving into a state where you're both embracing that your imperfect relationship is, by its very imperfections, perfect. And that doesn't mean, let somebody walk all over you or be a doormat, but it does mean allow things to transmute and grow and, be open to seeing a different, like the fish, like seeing a different way of doing things, sort of like not ignoring a problem, but swimming around and seeing it from a different angle and allowing that to become part of the process and part of the building of stability. And then we're back to the self. And so again, I'm reading it a little differently because it's in the context of the relationship itself. So the relationship might be taking some courage, needing some courage, and risking condemnation in order to defy family tradition, societal expectations, and establish its own healthy, authentic self-identity. So stepping free of labels, redefining yourselves, having the courage to follow your own path. So the relationship itself is coming into this unique identity. Maybe there's messages to, hold your person to account, or vice versa. And maybe together you're letting go of what other people think your relationship should be, and you're moving into this self-defined, this understanding between the two of you, hopefully an articulated, discussed, or, something where you've used your words to have that conversation, and where you're, choosing mutually to move into stability by letting go of past hurt and embracing the imperfections to the extent that it's healthy to do so. I just want to keep adding in that caveat about boundaries there. And, this person definitely has boundaries on lock. She's got them all around her, but she's also got peace and power. And she's got that wand energy with the orange colors coming through, like there's fiery passion animating her core, which I take it to refer to passion in your relationship. So we've got earth, we've got water, we've got a little bit of fire happening here. We've got more earth, and we've had air coming throughout. So I'd say your relationship has healthy doses of all the elements, everything it needs to flourish. And leaping ahead to the Ace of Pentacles here, which has essentially the same meaning as in the tarot, the traditional tarot. New beginnings, goals, motivation, desire, preparations, opportunity, education, security, potential reward, potential consequences. So emphasizing practicality and pragmatism, starting anew. So maybe there's a new start for your relationship, or it might be a building of stability, like a literal, there was a sentence, yes, here. Determine your weaknesses and strengths, weigh your responsibilities, and then decide whether or not they fit with your goals and objectives. And so you might want to do that within the relationship. What are the strengths of the relationship? What are its weaknesses? What are its responsibilities? And how do they align with the goals and objectives of the relationship? So this card is really emphasizing, it literally says, it is time to make preparations and plans for the future so you're not challenged or placed under stress by the changes that are coming. What life do you want to live, essentially? Think of the outcome you desire, and then assess whether the weaknesses and strengths we were mentioning fit with those goals and objectives. And it's a time of change and new beginnings on the career and home front specifically. So it's driven by a desire for financial security and independence for yourself or those for whom you are responsible. So I really see like a building energy here in respect of mutual goals of building something stable between you. And then, bottom of the deck, we've got desire. Desire, wants, dreams, ambition, goals, price, gestation, manifestation, and also potentially consequences and selfishness. So it's in the upright. So what do you desire most? How much do you want it? Desire compels action. Ground your desires in reality, which is basically the theme of this whole reading. And so there's a bit of a meditation on desire. So desire, to wish or long for something, to lust or crave, to want something. So desire is an influence on choice, and it's asking that you explore your desires and what it is you want and how much you want it. What are you willing to do in order to achieve your desires? So religious texts sometimes teach that desire is the root of all suffering. It corrupts, blinds us. That this tarot guide, in my own view, is that desire is the state of mind that compels you to act and do whatever you feel is necessary in order to fulfill that desire, because you know that you will feel pleasure or be rewarded for fulfilling that desire. So it uses the example of a glass of water when you're maybe outside working in the garden that you have grown together, and that you're parched outside and you really just want to have that sensation of the coolness of water in your mouth. But you know that you have to put down all your tools, stop what you're working on mid-task, clean yourself off, take off your muddy shoes, go inside, get a glass, fill the glass, drink the water, then put the muddy shoes back on, come back out and get back into your task. And so then you go through this calculation of how much do you want that glass of water? Do you want it enough to stop and do what needs to be done in order to have it now? Or are you more inclined to wait until the task in front of you is completed? Could waiting also have consequences? This is desire in action, which means believing that a particular outcome is good, it is worthy of our desire. It means valuing something as important and therefore worthy of our time and effort. It is desire that drives us to set goals and then act on them. It is desire that inspires us to keep going long after somebody else would have given up. Desire is what motivates you, drives you, compels you to act, to take risks, and to make sacrifices with a smile. I don't know about that smile bit, but certainly desire it's the force that moves things forward, right? It's the thing that impels us to build to whatever we want next. I personally believe that our desires are inlaid with our soul blueprint as we come into this life. And to the extent that we ignore our desires, I think we are sabotaging our soul mission on this earth in this lifetime. So I actually think desire is key, very, very important to listen to. And I'm not suggesting that you go out and buy the red convertible and drive around in it with someone half your age. I'm not talking about that kind of desire, but maybe for the Woody Allens of the world, maybe that is fulfilling your soul purpose. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's in any way a laudable goal, but I think we sometimes, like desire, even in that example, desire is what moves us past convention. It moves us into self-knowledge, into heeding what we ourselves want to create, that nobody else can tell us what our soul mission is. We can get guidance on it, but that knowledge ultimately comes from within us. And in a relationship, that knowledge ultimately comes from the two people involved, or maybe the polycule involved, right? So it's not for anybody on the outside of that relationship to determine what that relationship is, or to tell you what your desires are, or your partner what their desires are. Oh, y'all, that is the sound that my best friend tells me I make when I'm frustrated. I just delivered the most beautiful, well-composed words that just flowed out as they do, and then checked if I was recording, and of course I was not. Of course the storage was full, which means this has been a flip of a long reading. So thanks for being here. Thanks for staying to the end. So I'm just going to reprise a little bit of my lovely words about desire. I'm not sure exactly how much got captured, but I'm just going to read this all out again, and then I'll pastiche it together in editing later. So, to desire is to wish or long for something, to lust or crave, to want something. And it asks, what are you willing to do in order to achieve your desires? Desire is the state of mind that compels you to act and do whatever you feel is necessary in order to fulfill that desire. So far from being the root of suffering or that which corrupts humanity, it's actually the thing that impels you to act. So, and hopefully this part recorded, but I'll just reprise just in case. So it gives the example of a glass of water. So you're outside in the garden, gardening in the garden that you've created together here, and it asks, what are you willing to do in order to have that glass of water that you are so craving? You can taste it in your mouth already. You can feel the coolness, like you're outside, it's hot, you're parched. And so the question is, do you want it so badly that you're going to put down your tools, stop working on what you're working on, clean yourself off, take off your muddy boots, go inside, get a glass, fill the glass, and then drink the water, and then put your shoes back on and go back out and get back into what you were working on? Do you want it that badly? Or do you want it enough to stop and do what needs to be done in order to have the glass of water now? Or are you more inclined to wait until the task in front of you is completed? And could waiting also have consequences? This is desire in action, which means believing that a particular outcome is good, is worthy of our desire. It means valuing something as important and therefore worthy of our time and effort. It is desire that drives us to set goals and then act on them. It is desire that inspires us to keep going long after somebody else would have given up. Desire is what motivates you, drives you, compels you to act, to take risks, to make sacrifices. It adds with a smile, but I think the point is that desire is that which moves you forward. It's the impulsion to form a goal, and it's the seed. It's the seed energy that then you build on. So, if the desire is there, it's what motivates you to, this guy is not being stoic for nothing. He's being stoic to fulfill his desire. He's building towards the future. He's bleeding for the future, right? He's taking those steps and enduring a little bit of discomfort now in order to have what he has created and built later, in order to be comfortable later. And, presumably to be applauded for his great work and to provide for whoever is going to be residing in that space. And so I was saying it might be that within the connection itself, there's been some sort of external definitions that have been put on the connection, and maybe the connection itself, your relationship with each other, or with your polycule, if that's the way you flow, is going through a process of self-definition, of sort of differentiating what others want for your connection versus what the two of you want for your connection, or, the three of you or more. And, nobody on the outside gets to define that. Nobody on the outside gets to tell you what you want deep down, what your partner wants deep down. So I've wrapped up that neat little speech about desire perfectly, and I got frustrated because I felt like I'd pontificated and it had all been cut off. But now I've listened back, and I think most of it was actually captured. And I tried to re-record, and that wasn't working until I did the actual careful work of seeing what had been captured versus what had not. So the end of that was that no one but you and your person and your other person and your other person, if that applies, no one who is not interior to the relationship, only the people who are interior to the relationship or the connection can define that connection. So I was talking about how with the self card, it's the relationship itself is what is being called to come into its own autonomy. So, and that process happens, of course, through the parties who are in the relationship. So you and your person, for shorthand. And so it might be that this connection is going through a growth phase where you're looking to build. And the way that you're doing that is by putting down roots, but what those roots are or should be, what the goals are defined by your desires, by your desire, by your partner's desire. And this might be the process of individuation of the connection itself, such that you're casting off what other people think your relationship should be. You're disregarding the opinions of others, you're disregarding convention, you're listening to your own soul mission within this connection, within your dyad or your triad or what have you, and establishing what that relationship will be, what you're building towards, what your desires are, what your mutual desires are, what your desire is for the connection itself, and taking the steps to ground that into material reality in this process that is allowing the relationship to come into its own, to come into being as an autonomous entity of its own. So in the same way that we go through that process individually as selves, it's like the connection itself is going through that process of establishing its selfiness. I think you get it. I think I've said it maybe 6 different ways. And I'm forgetting what this one adds. It's been a little while now of re-recording and listening back and trying to pull it all back together. 6 of water. Oh, she was the one about revenge, right? And I flipped her over at the end, wanting to sort of, my usual fashion of wanting to right what is not right in the connection energetically. If we can do a little connection magic, soul magic, just by flipping a tarot card over, then let's do it. Let's do it. And so my question is for you all, as we come to the end of this, and please do like and subscribe and leave a comment. And the comment that I'd like you to leave in this one is, what do you desire? What is your desire within this connection? What is your soul deep desire? You can sit with that. If you already know, please do put it in the comments if you feel comfortable. And, and what is it that would move you into creating a connection that is completely its own entity, that is, something that has not been prescribed by family, by culture, by society, by friends. Like some people have very close friend groups that like add in all their peppery judgment. And, what would your relationship look like? What would your connection with this other person in your heart look like? And your partner may want to ask themselves the same question. If all those influences were disregarded and you were listening to your own souls. So with that, I think we're going to close it off. Thanks for being here. It's gone extraordinarily longer than intended, as usual, as is my usual fashion. And I did want to sort of get out a few quick ones as well. But it was worth the deep dive, I think, for like this one went pretty deep with the Gaia deck. What was it called again? Dreams of Gaia, the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So I'm happy with this deck. I like where it goes. I don't think it's quite as deep as some of the other decks, but it definitely got us where we were going with some profundity and consideration of, I like its philosophy emphasis. So yeah, thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.